Hi, I'm Deboki and this is Okie Dokie Boki, and today I'm going to be doing the book snob tag. This tag was originally created by Tia and All the Books, and I was tagged to do this by Olive over at A Book Olive, so I'll link both to the original tag video and Olive's video down below. This tag is a lot of fun for me to do because I have realized when it comes to pop culture and stuff, I have tastes that I would proudly accept as what you might call trash taste. I really just enjoy trashy things on top of good solid things, and I will vigorously defend trash to my death. Well, maybe not my death, it's probably not worth it, but I will vigorously defend a lot of trash out there. But I've gotten to a point where I'm so against being a snob that I'm almost kind of a snob about being not a snob. Question number 1, adaptation snob. Do you always read the book before you see the movie? No, I don't. I think maybe a long time ago I probably used to feel stronger about the idea that books are always better than the movies. I think, I grew up with the Harry Potter series and watching them get adapted in real time, and yeah, those movies were never going to be as good as the books. There's just, there's a lot more that you can do in the books in terms of plot, in terms of giving characters more of a voice, giving kind of more depth to different situations, that is harder to transfer into movies. At the same time, I feel with a lot of TV and movies going on right now, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of really amazing adaptations that are able to bring out a lot of different things from books that make those adaptations really interesting. I think Pride and Prejudice is a good example. To be honest, it took watching a few adaptations of Pride and Prejudice for me to really be able to get into the book, just because it kind of took me a little while to connect to Jane Austen's writing. But I think watching the adaptations and watching multiple adaptations which really bring out different sides to the story kind of gave me an entry point into the book that made it a lot more interesting and got me to kind of get what Jane Austen was doing a lot more. Number 2, format snob. You can only choose one format in which to read books for the rest of your life. Which one do you choose? Physical books, ebooks, or audiobooks? I don't really do audiobooks that much, not for any dedicated reason. I just don't kind of go in and out with audiobooks, but physical books versus ebooks is hard. I do often kind of alternate between them, on which one I actually am kind of most frequently reading. A lot of that has to do with when I'm commuting. If I'm commuting, ebooks are just easier. So I think I'd have to say ebooks, just because there's a convenience factor of especially if it's the rest of my life and I get a lot older, I think it's gonna be a lot easier to be able to deal with ebooks that I can just cram very easily into one little device versus a bunch of physical books that might get heavy, and stuff like that. So I think I would have to say ebooks. Number 3, ship snob. Would you date or marry a non-reader? I think so. I mean, it's weird. So my husband is a reader, but he's not as compulsively a reader. I think by booktube standards, he wouldn't necessarily live up to what people call a reader. He and I, we both double majored in English in our college, and he clearly enjoys reading books, but he does not feel the need to always be reading a book the way that I feel the need to always be reading a book. I think what I would have a hard time with is marrying someone who's just not, curious. But I've known a lot of people who are intellectually curious, but they just find, their outlet for that in places other than books. So I don't think I would necessarily need someone to be a reader. I would just want them to be someone who's interested in the world in some way. Number 4, genre snob. You have to ditch one genre, never to be read again for the rest of your life. Which one would you ditch? This relates to me sort of being a snob about snobs, or about not being a snob. I think I would ditch literary fiction. Is that too broad? That's probably way too broad. Whatever, we're going with it. We're just committing to this. I'm ditching literary fiction. I like my trash. It's comfortable. I want to read it forever, more than I want to read about unpleasant people doing unpleasant things and then being sad. Is that an unfair description of literary fiction? Almost definitely. I think I've read more literary fiction in the past year or two, now that I've been trying to get a little bit more out of my comfort zone, that I've actually really enjoyed. So I think I might be painting with too broad a brush and really doing myself a disservice. Question number 5, uber genre snob. You can only choose to read from one genre for the rest of your life. Which genre do you choose? Oh, This one is hard. I think like everyone who likes to read across a lot of genres, the reason why you like reading across a lot of genres is because all of these different genres give you something that you enjoy and they might not always overlap. So it's like hard to think of a genre that could be all of those things at once for me. I think maybe I would go with romance just because romance is so broad and has so much good stuff and it always makes me happy. Like romance is my go-to for like when I'm stressed, when I'm happy, when I'm sad, like just the range of emotions that I've approached romance books with has been across the board just because there's always a romance novel for like whatever mood you're in. And I think there's just so many good writers in the genre. There's so many good stories. There's just so much good stuff out there that I think it would be like the one genre that I feel like cool. Like, you know, when I'm 80 and just like want to chill, I'd probably want to chill and just read a romance because fuck it, I'm 80. Like, I already did a ton of shit. I just want to chill. So I'm going to go with that, I think. But I would miss so many other books too. Number 6, community snob. Which genre do you think receives the most snobbery from the bookish community? I think my answer is probably going to be in line with a lot of people's. Like obviously YA gets some degree of snobbery, but the other big genre is romance. And like I just said, I love romance. And I guess I get the basis of the snobbery, except that it's so clearly off the mark to me as someone who's been reading romance for a long time. I think a lot of people's snobbery against romance, and like, I hate saying things like this because like I'm really projecting here, but I think it comes not necessarily from romance. Like maybe you're just not into romance in general, that's fine, whatever. But I think the contempt for it often comes from the fact that people have like maybe read books, watched TV shows, watched movies that have romances in them that are not well constructed and that make no sense and that feel very, very forced. And I think that those things are not about the romance, they're about people being bad at writing romance. Like that's the real problem, and people really underestimate how much work goes into writing a romance. The best romance writers are good at what they do because they have really honed their craft at it, and I think people should really learn to appreciate that even if they don't feel the compulsion to read the genre. Question number 7, snobbery recipient. Have you ever been snubbed for something that you have been reading or for reading in general? I don't really think that I've gotten that much snobbery. I mean, maybe I have, but I'm pretty open about what my tastes are. Like I've been pretty open on my channel from the beginning about the fact that like I really enjoy romance novels, and so that's why I've had, you know, recent romance reading rundowns like intermittently on my channel, because I like go through periods where I just read a crap ton of romance novels and I want to share like all of my thoughts about them. It might just be that like I've been really lucky and haven't had to deal with many assholes because I don't know, like all of this stuff like is fun. Like reading is fun, and like if it's not fun then you're not reading the right books. There's definitely been times in the past, like I think in high school, like there were some books that I read because like I thought that I was supposed to read them to be seen as smart, and then I finished them. I didn't feel any smarter. I just felt like I'd finished a book that I didn't really care about. The only time I've seen this come up like maybe like in real life is because I'm someone who has very eclectic tastes when it comes to quality. Sometimes I'll be recommending things to people and I think they'll be a little bit wary of my recommendation, and I think they've been a little bit skeptical just because they're like, but she also likes, you know, Real Housewives, like does she have good enough taste to like recommend me something quality? Which like fair, I guess, but also not. But yeah, I'm usually, I think, pretty good at explaining to people why I think they'll like something or why I think something's good. And personally, I feel that running the full gamut of trash to not trash in my tastes means that I can really recognize when something is quality. And this is why I trust non-snobs more than snobs, because I think when you're not snobby, what you can do is collect a better data set of all of the stuff that's been made. Okay, so I'm actually in the middle of editing this video right now, but I wanted to quickly add something. This isn't gonna sound great, both because I was too lazy to set up my mic and I'm a little bit sick, I'm a little bit stuffy, and it's gross. It'll be fine. I just wanted to kind of throw this in there because I thought I had explained this well enough when I filmed the tag, and it turned out that I was wrong. I filmed this like a week or two ago, but like because of work and BookNet Fest, I wasn't able to like get it up. So here we go. A thing that I've noticed, especially like in the context of romance novels, but this comes up in general with like my taste in pop culture, because it does include a lot of trash,
is a weird thing that happens is because, like, you know, when I started my channel, I talked about doing science stuff, and in general, like, my friends are also scientists and stuff, or like when I meet people, they know that that's like a part of my background, that I was like a scientist for a long while and now I'm a science writer. A thing that I've noticed is that people sometimes, like, they treat that as if that's like, I don't know, like a justification for having a certain kind of taste, where it's like, okay, you know, like, she spends all her day thinking about science, so like, that's hard, and she's using all her brain power, and so that means that she needs this other pop culture thing that's like gonna let her shut her brain off, or that, like, because there's a thing in my life that people like have treated as if that's like a smart person thing, that it means all these like dumb person things, like the things that I'm reading or watching, are, you know, like I don't know, some kind of balance, or it's like okay because I do the smart person thing. And I just want to be clear, like, I think that's silly. Like, I think those, like, for a lot of reasons, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about this because I don't want it to seem like I, like, think of myself in these terms. Like, I think I'm fine intelligence-wise. Like, there's a lot of things I've worked hard at, but I don't think I'm, like, any smarter for having done science compared to people who work in other fields or in other jobs or whatever. It's just a thing that's, like, about how we see people who work in science. And that's something that I've noticed in how people, like, acknowledge my tastes or whatever. My thing is, I feel like I have approached all of my pop culture tastes with the same kind of brain thing that I like approach all the science stuff that I've done in my life. Like, I think that there are so many connections between how I process books and how I process science, whether it's like some high quality shit or like some low quality shit. And another reason I want to bring this up, because I think it's like separate from like the idea of like science means you're smart, is that I think some of it is kind of gendered in a way, right? Like, romance novels are like a girly thing, and science is something that's coded in very masculine ways in society, both in terms of like who we see as doing science and as like in terms of like how we treat its output. And I think on both ends there's a lot of things wrong with that. I think it's part of why we devalue romance novels, and I think it's part of why I don't want to say overvalue science, because I don't think you can truly overvalue it, but the extent to which we think about science to the exclusion of other things, or the way that it gets kind of fetishized versus treated for what it actually is. That's why I wanted to bring this up, because this is an aspect of like book snobbery, and in particular how I think I kind of get away with my taste, that makes me uncomfortable, because I think reading should be a thing that we get a lot of value out of. I think there's a lot of value to be gotten out of reading across so many different genres.
So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to tag some people down below, and yeah, bye.